What's up? Welcome to the PlayStation Lifestyle Underground podcast. We are an unofficial podcast of the PlayStationLifestyle.net comments and forums. My name is Brian Mashala. You can find me on the comments and forums as Brian Mashala and on PlayStation and Nintendo Network as CloudStrife768.
Yep, and I'm Jordash. You can find me on the comments and forums and the internet and on PSN as Jordash7K.
Nice and easy.
Yeah.
And if you can't tell from the lack of Hugo making the introductions, he is not here. It is a two-person show, which means we will be spending the next untold amount of time talking about RPGs. But before that time comes around, we do have a couple news stories to get into. We'll start off with the briefest one, the one we probably want to talk about the least, in that recently, due to the hype and build-up for the release of Wolfenstein 2, that certain people out there are taking offense at Bethesda's anti-Nazi propaganda, since Wolfenstein is a game where you shoot Nazis in the head, and people have a problem with that apparently these days.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they're earning their attention dollars whatever day that came out, so they can cash those in whenever they feel like, but, good for them. Yeah, don't have too much to, that story kind of tells itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, good on Bethesda to telling them to piss off, though, so that was nice. Next up, we could touch on a little briefly, because I'm not too familiar with it, but the Gran Turismo Sport beta was over the weekend, I believe.
No, it was two things completely wrong already, Brian.
Racing games.
Yeah, no, it was a pre-release demo, and it was from Monday to, I think it was today. I only played it on Monday, but I'll talk about that with Hugo next week, because I think he's getting the full game. But that was this week Monday, and I guess it had over 1 million people downloading it, or the preloaded it or something, because it's Gran Turismo and everyone wanted to get a taste of it.
Yeah, I believe the best-selling PS3 game was Gran Turismo 5.
It was Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. Or wait, no, 3. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of PlayStation 2. I'm kidding. Hugo and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, because I thought it was Gran Turismo 5 also, but it wasn't. VG charts, PS3 games. I think there was ended up being some Call of Duty. They were in the top 5, but it wasn't the number 1.
Okay, well, it could have been PlayStation exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Either was it number 5 that was, one of the best-selling PS3 games, period?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it was.
Not 4 or 6 or... I don't know which numbered ones are on PS3.
I think 5 and 6 were on PS3, and I believe 5 was the bigger one.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that I didn't mix up my Gran Turismos. But, Gran Turismo is huge still. Even though Sony had Drive Club, and there have been a lot of third-party games, like Project Cars and other... Sorry, Hugo. Rolling over in his work chair right now. But Microsoft puts out Forzas on a yearly basis, so when a Gran Turismo comes out, it's a big deal because they happen so infrequently, and I haven't really heard of anything bad associated with the games. No, server issues, no, except for delays, basically. The games come out really, really polished and well done and everything, and highly reviewed. So it doesn't surprise me that it's as big as it was, and I'm can only imagine how big the numbers are when the game actually comes out for real.
It's going to sell many millions. Yeah.
Because even Drive Club, with its troubled launch, ended up selling, north of 2 million, so that's not bad at all. So I'm sure Hugo will have lots to say about it in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And, yeah, but what was the other story? I won't force you to talk about Gran Turismo anymore.
Oh no, it's fine. I always love talking about games in general. What I don't like talking about though is loot boxes. And we won't spend too much time on it because we just aren't really sure about a couple of these things, but it's something that's been making the rounds on a lot of different news sites, Kotaku, PlayStation Lifestyle, maybe IGN, I don't really know. Others, I'm sure, where there are just a lot of AAA games coming out this year with loot boxes. And you have, Call of Duty will probably have them just like they have for the last couple installments. And Battlefront has confirmed that they will be there. And Battlefront is kind of one of the ones that seems to be the biggest issue right now, in that it's when you get like this battle box, I don't exactly remember what it's called, occasionally while playing Battlefront, you will get a number of cards that you can equip to your classes and heroes and starships and stuff like that make them stronger. And there are different tiers of that, so the lowest tier, maybe one of the class's abilities cools down a little faster, while a higher tier one does more damage or absorbs more damage or something. I don't really know. But they have confirmed that there are different tiers of these things, and they make your characters stronger, and you pay for them with real money. So there is the potential for some of the most powerful cards to be, it's still random, so it's not guaranteed, but you pay real money and you get them versus just playing normally, which to people with disposable income, to be able to buy some of these things, they're at an advantage, which sucks. The pay to win model of loot boxes. That's the multiplayer one. I'm sure Call of Duty will have some as well, and then we have a couple single player games that have them. Shadow of War had them. It was announced a long time ago. Since it's released, it's not quite as big of a deal, since you get plenty of orcs and gear just playing normally. So it's just a means of faster leveling up and gearing up. So that's not too bad. It's just still kind of shitty that you pay real money for this sort of thing. And Assassin's Creed Origins has something similar, but as of right now, it's not paid with real money. But it seems like it probably will be. They're just not
saying it.
You can buy them with in-game currency, which kind of doesn't make sense, because why pay for a loot box if I assume that you still have the tried and, the historic method of buying weapons in Assassin's Creed by going to a weapon shop. So
yeah, it's...
I assume they're going to be paid with real money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have no interest in loot boxes, even the ones that are purely cosmetic. I don't like it at all. I don't like any part of it.
I mean,
yeah, we talked about it last week. We've been talking about it on forums for 2 weeks. I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, we don't have to get into the whole debate. I disagree a little bit with you. It's shitty in single player games, but if you want to spend dozens of dollars on that sort of thing, and it is basically gambling to see whether you get something really good or something that you want versus just garbage, then I guess more power to you. The biggest problem I have with the loot box for something that's non-cosmetic in multiplayer games, like with Battlefront, that was, that's kind of shitty, that if you spend $10, there's a really good chance that you will immediately be off to, you're better off than the person who just bought the game normally. Which that's what I have a problem with.
Yeah, I have a problem with that too. Yeah, I don't like any of it. They suck.
Yeah. But, well, moving on, since we skipped it originally, but kind of applies anyway. Games that I've been playing recently. I have been playing the Star Wars Battlefront 2 beta, and for the most part, it is fun. I was enjoying it quite a bit. I liked what they were doing. I liked the change back to different classes that were able to do different things. I liked the battle point build up for, being able to activate heroes and stuff like that. Some of the single, quote unquote single player offline bot based Battlefront combat of the older Battlefronts was present in a minor way. Nothing story related, but I'm instantly more interested in Battlefront 2 than I ever was in Battlefront 1. I don't know if I'll buy it right away, but one day, if not for, if anything else than for the story. Other than that, though, I've been playing too much, mostly Ys 8, like most have done. I finished that off. Great game, good story. Went off the rails a little bit at the end, but it wouldn't be a JRPG if it didn't do that.
Now, there was a story about, I guess, the localization for that was bad or something.
I couldn't really tell, to be very honest with you. I never really paid attention, and the spoken dialogue was fine. The text dialogue, maybe one or two things just make me go, huh? What? But, I chalked it up to just being a Japanese game, and that happens sometimes. But NIS is usually pretty good about translating games, so it was a little surprising, but for them to come out and say that it's terrible and they're redoing it was kind of nuts. I guess that's another news story, if only because I don't know of any time anyone has ever said, sorry about the translation, we're redoing it.
Yeah, because that's not going to get more people to buy the game. People who wanted it day one are already buying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to spend a lot of money for not getting very much back.
But I can appreciate that they are caring for it in that kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ys is a pretty, I don't want to say big, but pretty old and established franchise. It's been, it's 20 years old.
Yeah.
Obviously, 8, even though the 8th just came out, there are more unnumbered side games. So, I mean, there's a good 10 to 12, if not more, that I may not have known because they're still, they never got localized out of Japan, but, it's a pretty big series, especially in Japan.
Oh yeah, and also I think they also made the Trails of Cold Steel. Like that was a really, really good localization. And I think they took pride in that, so maybe they were kind of taken aback from Ys 8 being, I guess, below their standards.
Yeah, I can't recall off the top of my head who did the translating for Trails of Cold Steel. I just know
it was Exceed.
Okay. Yeah, NIS did the translation for Ys 8. That's why. Exceed is the best translating developers / publishers / whatever you want to call them. Because I think they make games as well as just translating, but they're a port house basically. But they're, about as good as it gets out there. But aside from beating Ys, I played some more Destiny, and as of a couple days ago, with the launch of Final Fantasy XIV's newest patch, I've been playing that again. On top of a bunch of Stardew Valley on Switch. Yep.
Finally done with Splatoon?
I'll come back to it here and there. I think there's a Splatfest this weekend that I might partake in, but it's fun, but it's Final Fantasy XIV is a special game in that I keep coming back to it. I don't come back to games after I've played enough of them. I just move on to the next thing.
Me too.
Destiny was also kind of an exception, but I played it less and less as the game went on, even with expansions and stuff like that. So we'll see how Destiny 2 goes, but Final Fantasy XIV is really the only game that I've played consistently for the last, I don't know, six years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And does that round out all the games you played this week?
That is it for me. Yep.
Let's see. I thought I was getting tired of it, and then I wasn't. Of Metal Gear Solid 5. I invested most of my time into that this week. I did also touch on Agents of Mayhem, and I got Uncharted 4, and I played through, I don't know, probably the first 5 chapters of that. And the Ghost Recon free weekend started today, and I played that for a couple hours earlier today, too.
Okay.
And, yeah, still mostly Metal Gear, but got in some other stuff, and I'll be playing Ghost Recon most of the weekend. I really enjoyed the 5-hour time trial, and I will be playing more than that this weekend.
I may also play some of it, like I was telling you earlier.
Yeah.
Been playing a lot of RPGs lately, so
yeah,
wouldn't mind shooting someone.
Which, by the way, going from Metal Gear Solid to Ghost Recon, like, they're similar but also very different, which is making the move from over to Ghost Recon very, very difficult. Because I'm just doing things that I would expect to work in Afghanistan, and it doesn't work. And then it's not working in Ghost Recon. I had a little bit of trouble today.
I can imagine. Did you knock someone out and try to wormhole them away?
Oh no, you just get seen by enemies super fast, so I got to be a lot more careful.
Yeah, I can only imagine how difficult that would be. Thankfully, the transition as night and day as it is from Ys and Final Fantasy to a game like Ghost Recon or maybe Bioshock Infinite, we'll see, be a little easier just because I don't have to worry quite as... Well, that's a lie. I will have to worry about as much as anything, but just different pace, different flow.
Yeah.
Different controls, different way of looking at things. But,
I guess that's it. Yeah, that's it for me.
Fantastic. Speaking of Final Fantasy, since it is you and me, Jordash, let's talk about some more Final Fantasy. Last time we did this, our little, what do they call them, fireside chats, it was Final Fantasies 7, 8, and 9, which, oddly enough, became a little more relevant thanks to the release of Final Fantasy 9 as a PlayStation 4 game with trophies recently. Which is good, since it was unanimous between the two of us that was the best of the PlayStation 1 Final Fantasies. However, we did omit a very close second, I think, in Final Fantasy Tactics. I just feel so wrong in my gut for not talking about it, at least briefly, before moving on to the rest of the PlayStation 2 games.
And real quick, before you even jump into that, I like your very liberal use of unanimous for 2 people.
Yes. Unanimously in the states of Virginia and Maryland.
Yeah.
Do not find us, please. Nazis. But we both did agree that Final Fantasy IX was the best of the 3.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't saying you were wrong. I just liked your word choice.
Yes. Thank you. Very, very much on purpose. But how much of Final Fantasy Tactics did you play?
All of it.
All of it, fantastic.
All of it. I played some of a hack version of it to make it a lot more difficult. Yeah, I played it a ton.
How would you feel comparing it to the other three?
Favorably.
Yeah. More or less than Final Fantasy IX.
I like it better. Story doesn't go off the rails. Yeah, it's a great story.
It really is.
Yeah. I've played that one probably more than the God, I know I played 7 and 9 a lot too. I put a ton of time into that. Like I've done like solo class challenges, stuff like that. I've played it a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's hard for me, honestly, to compare, and it's hard for me to say that I like 9 better. And that's probably with, asterisks and, butts and wells and stuff like that. Story-wise, yeah, it's an amazing story. Gameplay-wise, it's really, really good. I think I view it less favorably than 9, just because it was my first strategy role-playing game, so it was really difficult for me at first, and I didn't get it, and it didn't click with me right away, so I kind of ignored it for a little while. I came back to it well after the fact, well after I played Final Fantasy IX. So, when PS2 was out and stuff like that, I went back and I played it, and it finally clicked, and I was like, oh my goodness, but, that initial spark just wasn't quite there for me yet. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason. And, it's kind of like comparing bananas to apples. They're fruit, but, still very different fruit.
Yeah, like I recently played through it again. I think I bought it on my tablet in 2014 or 15. And it was still great. It was still great.
Yeah, I really hope Square brings that to PlayStation 4. I don't know if they will. They have the ability to, because all their tablet games are just coming out, but
yeah, just release it. Because it's not that what they put on tablets is not like exactly the same as the PS1. It's like one of the DS remakes they did, which has like a few cutscenes in it. I want to say there's like one more class they put in there. There's like one other like random guest hero that's overpowered that you get. But yeah, just copy and paste it over to PlayStation 4, and I'll buy it again.
I absolutely would too. I just don't know if they would, because it's probably a consideration, but well, one, if sales weren't that great on the mobile versions, then they probably wouldn't, and two, I don't think there's a Steam version, which would probably be easier to port to PlayStation 4. Final Fantasy 7 and 9 have Steam versions, so, and the achievements and trophies, or the trophies were ripped from those achievements, so that might have a factor in the porting process.
I don't see what the trouble is. Control-C, Control-V, get it on PS4.
Plus, I don't personally care, but a lot of people I'm sure would. It looks like a Super Nintendo game, so it may be less appealing to people who are trying to play it on PS4. I don't know.
And if we care about graphics, you look at Final Fantasy VII and those block hands. That I think they're over it. They're past it.
Yeah, but it's very close for me. It's definitely a beloved series, and I bought it on PlayStation 1. I bought it again on PSP with the War of the Lions remake, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's the one that's on the tablets.
Yep. I have not bought it on mobile or tablets because I don't really play games on those. But I did buy the War of the Lions digital PSP version again so I could play it on Vita. And I've played all of the maybe not all. I don't remember if there was a DS version, but there was at least one, maybe two of Game Boy Advanced games that I played the shit out of in high school. And that game, to a small extent, is coming back in Final Fantasy XIV, which is fantastic. I'm not too far into that story just yet of that, quest chain, but they're talking about an ancient hero named Delita and the founding of I don't exactly remember the name of the city, but an Ivalice, and how he had a friend, but the friend's name has been lost to history, but one of the main people involved in the quest is named Ramza, but no one knows that Ramza is named after the old ancient Ramza. And we're just now flying into Rabanastre, which is a raid in the country of Dalmasca, which is from Final Fantasy 12, and we'll get to that more in a little bit, but it's especially good and very, very true to the roots, because a lot of the team members that worked on Final Fantasy XIV came from the 12 team. So, I've said it before to you, but the DNA of 12 is everywhere in 14. Mm-hmm. And it's showing through when you have Final Fantasy 12 in 14 right now. I mean, very literally in the raid, the holy city of Dalmasca. Or Rabanastre, excuse me. Mm-hmm. But that's Ivalice. We'll get back to it in a little bit. Let's start with Spira first and talk about some Final Fantasy X.
Sure.
Before getting into the game, my worst experience ever with an EB Games was as a result of trying to buy Final Fantasy X. I think I've told the story before, but I pre-ordered the game, which, to any rational, insane person means that you're guaranteeing your copy in a store. This was back before the internet, where Amazon, fucked up your orders constantly. This was when you go into an EB Games and hand them $60 and they hold the game until you pick it up. They sold my copy that I had pre-ordered of Final Fantasy X the day it released. Yep. I've always been bitter about that store, even though it became a GameStop. I have never gone back. But thankfully I went to a Coconuts, which is a regional type of FYE. Not a Coconuts, a Sam Goody, which was a regional FYE type of store in my local mall, and picked it up there. But it was worth it, because when it came out, I loved Final Fantasy X. I mean, I still do, but...
Let me stop you right now. You said loved, so you've obviously come back a little bit on it.
It's come down in how I view the game a little bit. I still think it's a really good game. I liked that it was different. I liked some of the different things they did with it. I liked how it was the first voiced Final Fantasy, which was a pretty big deal. I didn't like all of it, and replaying it in HD, not that, the HD-ifying made much of a difference, but replaying it recently kind of, I don't want to say jaded my opinion, but kind of brought to light some negative things that I either ignored or just didn't really have, or didn't really care about at the time, but do now. Which, I can get into in a little bit. But for now, we could talk about the good. And it was a good Final Fantasy. It was enjoyable. Most of the characters were really enjoyable and fun. The setting was cool. The story was actually pretty interesting.
I really, really enjoy its story.
It was kind of a little controversial that, I didn't really notice at the time, but replaying it recently, it's very Christian versus Islam in the way it presents itself, I feel.
I have not noticed that or read that anywhere. What is this?
Well, you have, again, this is just my opinion, and before I get into it, let me just preface this by saying that I'm not an overly religious person and don't really have a problem with, I don't want to say talk shit, but kind of bring to light some of the more negative aspects of religions. But I kind of got the vibe when I was playing it a couple years ago when it came out on PS3 that, Yu Yevon was kind of like Jesus in the way he was revered by a lot of people, and the notion of trying to be good, and when you repent for your sins and stuff like that, and eventually sin will stop. The whole notion of scare the church scaring you into being good for sin. I got kind of those parallels, and then maybe it's a little stereotypical and quite possibly a little offensive that I always viewed the Al-Bed as Muslims because of their more, how do I phrase this? They always respected and appreciated and used ancient technology while living in a desert and being, shit on constantly, and with you Yevonites, and suffering through a bunch of holy war. I don't think they ever call them holy wars, but wars and stuff like that have taken place, and just the Yevon always seemed like an oppressive religion towards the Al-Bed, and just I was getting a lot of parallels between Christianity, Islam from the viewpoint of a Christian.
Yeah, to me, I always felt like the Church of Yevon was almost like a caricature of religions, in that it's just a very do what we say, or you're or like you were cast out from society, like the Al-Bed, where I always felt it wasn't. It was, wasn't his, I guess, real world allegory. It was almost a caricature of all them religions that are just, hey, do what we say, or sin is gonna come get you. If you sin, you're in trouble. And I thought I didn't think it was as serious as that. All of that.
Well, yeah, there was definitely a lot of inferences made on my part, but those were the impressions that I was getting. Less so when I was a bright-eyed young teenager in, I don't even remember, middle, high school, whenever it came out. But those were kind of the vibes that I was getting when I was playing it a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Like a big part of the story that people had qualms with was like, oh, why is Titus just a dream? That doesn't make sense. I don't get it. It always made perfect sense to me, because all those faith, like they were the summoners from Xanarkand way, way long ago. And then they said that this is like we dreamed you. No, it's like that was just their little version of a summon, because they were summoners, and they summoned the town. All their little rocks corpse got together, and they, in their mind, summoned the town, and that's what they did. And because they're still summons, they still were real and existed in the world. They had Titus, and I guess they got stuck in their dream. They got inceptioned, and they sent Titus out to let him stop Xanarkand dreaming. Yep. And that's it. That was it.
Yep.
I got over that real quick.
I definitely didn't get it the first time I played it long ago. I still struggle a little bit to understand it. I mean, because sin is the manifestation of the founder of the Church of Yevon, because the old Xanarkand because Xanarkin, whatever religion they were believing in, was different than, or no, technologically speaking, Xanarkin was ahead of...
No. Bavel used all the Machina, and then they warred with Xanarkin, and they killed all the summoners, and then Yu Yevon showed up, and he's like, well, I'm the ultimate summoner, and I'm gonna punish you for the rest of time for ruining Xanarkin.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that seems a little more familiar now that I...
Yeah, he was he was the leader, or I don't know if he was the leader of Xanarkin, but he was I guess a famous summoner.
And then his wife was the crazy lady who still lived in Xanarkin, who...
That was not his wife. Unileska was the first summoner who decided to stand up and do a final summon to temporarily kill Sin, and her husband was some other guy. I don't remember who he was.
Okay. See... Yeah, okay. That, again, sounds more familiar. Even now the plot makes... Again, it's... If you understand it, that's fine. It was something that I've always struggled with a little bit. I mean, the whole Titus was a dream thing was never the problem for me. It was kind of the more backstory things that you were just describing, who Yu Yevon was, and Unileska, and ancient Xanarkin and old Bavel and stuff like that. But still, I don't want to say that was off the rails, and I don't want to say that Yu Yevon being a bug was off the rails either, because final bosses in RPGs tend to be
something weird.
Yeah. So, yeah, actually, oddly enough, I really think that Final Fantasy X's story was pretty cohesive. Maybe not the most sensical, but cohesive.
Yeah, it absolutely was, and I would say to get an emotional reaction out of you, this one has got the most out of me. I think we're going to talk about 12, and we're going to say that has a really good all-around story. That's good, but you're not really as attached to characters. They make you kind of care about Titus and Yuna's relationship, and at the end when Titus is going away and fading out, him and Yuna get their little scene together, and before you fight the final bosses, Titus and his dad gets their scenes together. There's a lot of good scenes in the ending of that game.
Yeah, and I do like the characters. I actually do not like Titus. I always found him to be kind of really obnoxious. Probably more due to the voice actor, which kind of amplified the personality of him. I didn't really like him. What kind of annoyed me a little bit too, because she was such a wet rag for most of the game. I mean, I liked the character growth of her, and how she became more independent and more, stronger as the game went on. I did appreciate that and that growth, but for much of the game, her as a character wasn't all that interesting. But, I really liked Kamari, I really liked Oren, I really liked Waka, and his relationship with Lulu, even Riku. All the other characters were great, I thought, but Titus, no. I did not like Titus.
I know people, a lot of people didn't like Titus, but to me, he always kind of made sense that he was a little bit whiny, because when he lived in Xanarkin, he was a very popular star person. He's used to kind of getting what he wanted.
I don't disagree. I totally agree, and I always got that vibe from him anyways, but even though he experienced growth during the story, my opinion of him never changed. For example, I don't know, did you ever play Tales from the Abyss?
No. I don't even know what that is.
Well, it is another big RPG series, the Tales of games. Tales and Symphonia.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So there was one on PS2 called Tales of the Abyss.
It threw me off because it didn't just have, like, Tales of Town name.
Right. There's actually, it's also out on 3DS, so if you ever want to dust that guy off, it's a really good game. And the main character in that is a prince who is just spoiled and stuck up and really obnoxious for so much of the game. And you hate him as a character, but by the end he changes and he grows and he becomes a better character. And that was, I'm not that I'm saying that Titus didn't grow well, but just something about Titus really rubs me the wrong way, and just not my favorite character.
Yeah.
He was one of the strongest characters and the fastest until you maxed out everyone's sphere grid when it didn't even really matter, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And generally he was, obviously being the main character, the one you couldn't really take out of your party the most. And it just made more sense to have him in, especially with his overdrive. Was really good. So you were always compelled to leave him in, but I don't know. I didn't like him.
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to talk about like mechanics and stuff like that now?
Sure, but really quick, another thing that I think kind of worked against Titus was the fact that in the game he was never technically Titus. He was the only character that was never named because you chose his name in the very beginning. So
and then they never speak it. Yeah.
So I think it probably cheapened his arc with Yuna a little bit because they had this wonderful love and romance, but
she can always say it's you
or like, that the newest guardian or him or you. Yeah.
Yeah. They tried to work around it,
Yeah, which I think it might have been to their detriment. It probably would have just been better to name him Titus and call him Titus throughout the game instead of Hey You.
Yeah. Yeah, and even in X2, she still doesn't call him Titus. Or excuse me, I think it's pronounced freaking Titus, but
Titus.
No one's calling it. Yeah, no one's calling him Titus. That's a terrible name, Japan. Yeah. Terrible.
Yep.
So Titus doesn't have a name, but there was a sphere grid. I thought the sphere grid was fine. I thought it really ended up like once you figured it out as you're playing through, you're just looking forward to when like the next like strength stats were and how long that would be, and that's what it turned into very quickly.
Yep. It always. I know they changed it in the international release where you could just make everyone start in the middle and do their own thing.
Yeah, they made that like the master grid. Did you use the master grid or did you stick with the normal?
I took the normal.
I used the master grid when I platinumed it earlier this year.
There's something about, I just get like, maybe it's because I've played so many older school Final Fantasies where, Cecil is a paladin, and Kain is a dragoon, and Aerith is a healer, and Zidane is a thief, and Vivi is a black mage. That these characters are stuck in a specific role in my mind. So even though I could make Kamari the white mage and Titus the Orin, the knight, the heavy hitter, and Waka with his ball, the black mage, I just stuck with their normal roles. It made more sense. It made the most sense to me.
Yeah. Actually, playing with the Master Sphere Grid, Expert Grid, whatever it's called, it wasn't like as cut and dry as that. The original Sphere Grid, like people's paths were sort of locked along the way, but with the expert grid, you could really like kind of like hop between grids as you're going through. Like the white mage and black mage grids were like you could constantly, not constantly, but pretty often like hop back and forth between the two. So like it wasn't a big deal for like a Yuna and Lulu to kind of switch between their white and black mages, and so Lulu could have like life and could revive people, and Yuna could also dip over and get like Thundaras and all those spells. So it wasn't like just you start in the middle and you choose exactly what your characters do. You could really customize your characters as you went through and were playing through. Then of course you get to the end of the game and you just grind up everyone, and every character becomes identical except for their overdrives.
Right. No, I don't know. I wanted to stick a little more traditional when I played it, the HD remaster, and I never got around to platinuming it because I had no fucking desire to do that again after I did it in high school.
Yeah, 15 years ago. Yeah. Because it was easy to, now that we're adults and we can have so many screens around us, I could like mindlessly grind and be watching a TV show right next to it.
Yeah.
So that made it easier.
For me, the first time I caught 10 of every single monster in the world was enough for life.
Oh, that was the breeze compared to everything else, to all the sphere grid filling up. That was nothing.
That's good.
It took a little while. It took a little while.
Yeah. But I did like the sphere grid. It was I don't necessarily want to say more interesting. It was basically just leveling up in every previous Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, it was.
Just you saw that, hey, I hit this level and I get a little bit of buff of strength, or, this level is when I get my aura spells. I did appreciate and enjoy the fact that you can open it up at the end game and, originally, for example, make Horan faster and Waka
more accurate,
stronger,
everything. Yeah. It had a really good end game for people that like min-maxing, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
There's a lot to do, and it wasn't like there was just end of story stats and then get all your stats to the max and do everything. You could still fight some of the like original monsters and creations like as you're going through. So you weren't just grinding for 50 hours and then you could fight 50 bosses. You could still fight things as you were grinding and leveling up. So you weren't completely bored. There were still things to do.
Just mostly bored.
Yeah, just mostly you had to find something else to do while you were doing it.
But no, I enjoyed it. I really loved that you can... It always bothered me a little bit that Final Fantasy 7 and 8 took away a party member, because all previous Final Fantasies had the 4 party members, except I think maybe 2. Don't quote me on that, I can't exactly remember, but for the most part you've always had 4 party members instead of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And 7 and 8 took that away, 9 brought it back, but 10 give you all of them in a fight. So I was the guy who always switched in everyone for every single fight and made everyone do something. So each fight, everyone got a little bit of experience. I mean, it didn't matter who participated. The amount of experience was always the same, but
yeah,
I made sure that everyone participated in every single fight, so...
Yeah, I did that as you're, like, going through. You do that through the first, like, about 2/3 of the story, and then you get your capture weapons, and then you just use, like, Waka, Orin, and Titus for going through everything else in the game.
Yeah, basically.
That's how it was for me. Yeah. A lot of people complained about it. I guess it was kind of like linear as you go through. There weren't a lot of side quests to do until you get the airship at the end, and then there's still not a whole lot of side quests. I didn't care about that. I don't mind things being linear. I like being told what to do in a video game. A lot of times when I get stuck in a big open world thing where I'm just free to go wherever, I'll get paralyzed with indecision and end up doing nothing. I was fine with the story being linear and most side quests on not being available till the end.
The whole linearity thing kind of really annoyed me because it's bullshit. People love the openness of Final Fantasy VII without realizing that you can never do anything except go in a straight line from point A to point B to point C to point D, and then, whenever you got the tiny Bronco, it opened up a little bit, and then...
But you still could only go to... And, you could go to a few new places, but you couldn't do anything there.
Exactly. So, the linearity thing always annoyed me because it's always been
you're saying people complaining about the linearity.
Right.
Okay.
And then what really pisses me off is when people praise Final Fantasy X, but talk shit about Final Fantasy 13 when they're nearly the same game. Same team, same basic concept, same kind of group of characters, a giant fucking hallway that opens up at the very end before you beat the game.
I never finished 13, but I put a good probably 50 hours into it, because it takes 40 hours until you get the whole damn party together.
Right. That I really just hate when people talk shit about the linearity of 13 but love 10. It makes no sense to me. But I don't want to get into that. I'll just get really angry about it.
Yeah. The story in 13, well, it was a combination of it being linear and then you get thrown into the story, and so much of that shit didn't make sense.
Right.
Until you're playing for 50 hours, and they're like, oh, it's starting to make sense.
I can totally understand that, but
yeah.
Again, I don't want to. We'll get into that someday, I'm sure, because I don't want to say I'm the biggest Final Fantasy 13 defender, but I always, I enjoyed the games. They were fun, and it just really annoys me when the hypocrisy of, I don't like 13, it's crap, but 10 was great, comes out. Because,
no,
again,
13
very
wasn't,
similar.
13 wasn't crap, it's just story wasn't accessible, and it was hard to, it was really hard to get into.
No,
it didn't want you to get into it.
The story,
weird.
I can agree, yep.
Yeah.
But, aside from that, come back to 10. Anything else?
No, we're coming up on 52 minutes. Let's hop over to X2 already.
X2. Oh man, I forgot about X2.
I thought X2 was fine. Playing it back in the day, I played through it probably 3 or 4 times. I really liked its replayability. I thought its story was fine the first time going through. I liked all the different classes. I liked its battle system going back to active. I thought the game was just fine. The story was a little annoying from time to time, but overall it was still a very good game.
Yeah, I was a really big fan of the battle system. I thought it was really interesting. How, to get around the fact that you only had 3 party members constantly, you can switch between different roles of them, and that was fun.
In that game, I did not get to do all the end game stuff. I didn't go all the way through via Infinito, and I guess there's some sort of Coliseum type thing in the HD remake, and I haven't done that either, but I want to.
I have not done that myself. I actually haven't even played the second one.
Yeah.
From the HD remaster. I need to maybe get around to that one day.
Yeah. What I would do if I was 17 again and had tons of time, because when you would play through the game several times, you'd get the dress spheres, multiple copies of them. So when you got dress spheres, and when you put the dress spheres in the fucking garment grid, when you had multiple copies, and you would get the bonuses for moving through your garment grid in battle. You could have 4, say, I forget what the item one was, alchemist or machinist, and you could just switch from machinist to machinist as you move through and get the buffs. So that was, if you had tons of time in 2005, you could do that.
I did not. Yeah. I just played through it to beat it, and didn't really spend too much time with the end game.
Yeah, I did. I started in it, but then I think I moved on to Star Ocean, which was also super good. Trying to think of more specifics about the game, because I know now we're trying to rush, because we got 2 in at Final Fantasy X, which I knew I would get into it.
Well, it was pretty similar to 10. I mean, obviously the sequel, same team, a lot of similarities, a lot of similar locations, a lot of similar characters. One of the things that I always appreciated about the story, at least, even if I didn't necessarily like elements of the story, the things that I always appreciate or wanted to know in a JRPG is what happens to this city after I save the world and, do stuff like that. Or when I finish this quest, what happens to this family who are expecting a child? It was a very good sequel. Like, the world was very following up. One thing that I never got is Yuna saves the goddamn world. And it's 2 years later, and it's like no one gives a shit about her. Like, they walk in and they're like, no, you pay for that bread. Like, Yuna is back to being a nobody. Yeah.
They're like, yeah, Titus is the one that really made the sacrifice here, so yeah, it's gonna cost you, Yuna. That was the only thing that didn't make sense. That right there. Yeah. But aside from that, what was Kilika, I think it was. When you first go through in 10, it's basically destroyed because as you're sailing in on the ship from Besaid, it's destroyed by Sin. So you only ever see it kind of messed up, and then when you go through 10-2, it's, a nice, lively, fully built village, and that's nice. The big city with the Blitzball stadium was basically the same, which was fine. I didn't expect it to change too much. Blitzball as a minigame was excellent in 10, by the way. I enjoyed it. Oh, yeah, I thought it was good, too.
As far as minigames go, I definitely appreciated the breath of fresh air from card games from 8 and 9.
Yep, you had to play quite a few games, less if you're lucky, more if you're unlucky, to get Waka's ultimate weapon thing from the Blitzball. But all in all, it wasn't too bad. As far as like grind-wise, it was a grind to get it, but you could make it a little faster.
Right.
There was Blitzball in X2, but like it was different and weird, and I know I didn't like it.
Nope. Didn't touch it at all.
Yeah. Like it kind of auto-played itself. You couldn't control your players. It was, I don't know, it was broken.
Right.
But there was a lot of different classes. Dress spheres. You could switch to, and that made it a lot more, I guess you could say, fun for replaying it, because there were just a ton of different like attacking classes. So you could close your eyes and hit X and get your way through the battles again with different animations or whatever. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, definitely. It highlighted some of the history of the Final Fantasy series. I don't know. I mean, they had to change a couple things. I think instead of like Black Mage, you had... Was there Black Mage, or was it called something else?
No,
a Reaper, maybe?
No, they had Black Mage in that. They had Black Mage, White Mage. Then it quickly starts to go off the rails. There's they had Luck.
They had Samurai. They had Beastmaster. They had
Berserker. I think that was
Berserker.
Yeah.
Alchemist, Gunner, Warrior.
There's Gunner. There was Gun Mage.
Gun Mage.
There was Thief. There was Dark Knight. And the HD version added, I think, a couple more. There's like something made up called like a festival list. I don't know what it did, but I don't remember what it did. But somehow they were just, I don't know, ready for a party. I remember someone's moved, like they kicked off their shoes at an enemy, and
nice.
I said, we're gonna go back to Gunner now.
Yep, probably a good call.
Yeah.
But fine game.
Yeah, not much like I can think of really stands out from it.
Nope.
Like, yeah, it was a very good sequel. Like you said, it showed the world that whatever 2 years after it's been saved, and the world goes on.
Yeah. Always on sale if you want to play them now on PS4.
Physical copies are always dirt cheap.
Yep. Physical.
Dirt cheap.
Digital is way too expensive. Physical.
Yeah. I think I want to say they were $8 or $10 on Black Friday last year for PS4. I might pick it up on PS4 just so I can play X2 on the PS4 instead of having to dust off that damn PS3.
I might do the same, actually.
Yeah.
But moving on, before we spend 6 hours talking about 10 and 10 too.
Mm-hmm. 12.
Eh,
Oh, no, you want to talk about 11. You can talk about 11. You have 30 seconds.
We will very briefly talk about 11. I never played 11 on PS2. I got the Japanese version and thought I could get away with playing it, but I could not. Because, needing an American or having to pay for time to play the account or make an account, buy game time to play it, and I wasn't sure that it was always online at the time. It was a fucking mess when I got on PS2 in Japanese, so I eventually just got it on PS2 on not PS2 on PC. Plus, I didn't want to deal with buying an additional hard drive to store the game and internet adapter to play online on my PS2. So I just went with PC because it has those things already. But as an MMO, it was, I thought, really, really good. Definitely very old by this point, and definitely very, very grindy. I mean, with a level cap of 75 at the time when I played, you can spend 4 hours in a party of 3 other people grinding XP. There were no quests. You just killed monsters over and over again. You spend 2 hours and you can maybe get a level. And there were 12 classes to do that with. So, very grindy. But I thought it was very good. It was a fun game. It was definitely a nice take on MMOs at the time. And, I met a lot of good friends that I'm still friends with today thanks to that game. And it laid the groundwork for Final Fantasy XIV, which is arguably one of the best Final Fantasies in the series.
Yeah, I've heard so many good things about 14 from so many people now. I remember reading things about the launch being a mess, but now that it's been out and smoothed over, the people that play it love it, and a lot of people play it now.
Yeah, it's really, really enjoyable. And despite it being an MMO and it forcing you to play with people every once in a while, you can play most of it by yourself, which is great.
That's the best part of a game.
And it
remove the infecting elements. Just play by yourself.
I mean, sometimes it makes sense. Hey, you're doing this simple thing, you're doing that simple thing, but this huge threat or this kind of crazy situation is unfolding. Grab a team of 7 other 23 other people and save the world. That happens.
I was super pissed when I messed up. Like I didn't download the PS3 version of 14 when I guess like the last month and a half of when they were turning off the PS3 servers for FF14. Like they were just giving it away for PS3 for a month, but if you didn't download it before a certain date, you couldn't play it, and I forgot to download it. So womp womp.
Well,
I missed out.
Well, they're doing an unlimited free trial now.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? We can discuss that.
What is unlimited free trial?
You can only play
no limits?
You can only play up until level 20, but everything before level 20 is accessible. A lot of things before level 20 are accessible. I don't want to say everything. You can't do a large number of group things, and some things are restricted, but you can do quite a bit still.
And how much does that game cost a month?
13 to 15.
Or does it just like change every month?
You can pay $15 a month, and that gives you the ability to have as many characters as you want on as many servers as you want, which doesn't make too much sense because you can change to any class you want on the same character. That is the $15 a month option. If you want to pay $13 a month, you are limited to one character per server and only, I don't remember, 20 characters total across all servers. So if you want to do that option, which is what most people do anyways, that's only $13 a month.
I don't know. I might want to have multiple characters that are identical leveled up on the servers. Nah.
We can get into that some other day, since I'm the MMO guy around here.
Yeah, that'll just be you monologuing for an hour. Let's get into 12, which was just HD released back in July. I want to say July 11th.
I want to say you might be right about that.
Yeah, 7-Eleven. What do you know? I was really looking forward to that. Got it. One of the only 2 games I got right away this year. And I just played it for... I loved that it was fast-forwarded. I almost had the whole story beat in a week. And then for a week, I did a whole bunch of side quests. And then I finished up the game in 2 weeks. And by that time, I had played a lot of Final Fantasy 12. And then I was tapped out for it. How was your experience playing 12 a couple months ago?
I actually haven't finished it yet because I was playing it super speed and then something else came out and I got distracted.
I won't spoil the ending for you.
Well, if Final Fantasy 14 is anything to go by, Rabanastre is okay for at least 1,000 years.
Well, see, that was a spoiler for me because I haven't played 14 yet, so thanks.
It's okay. It's in every screenshot for the most recent patch. No, I always loved Final Fantasy 12. It came at a weird time because it was at the very tail end of PS2 when I don't know if PS3 was out just yet. But
yeah, it was like really, really at the end of 12, almost like kind of what they did with 9.
Yeah, 360 was definitely out already. I remember my roommate in college had a 360, and I got, I still had, we still played PS2 because there were a lot of games, but it was one of the last PS2 games.
Yeah, PS2 was great. People played PS2 for years and years after it came out.
Games came out for it until like a good chunk into the PS3's life cycle. It is one of the best-selling consoles of all time, so it makes sense. I always really enjoyed Final Fantasy 12. It was... People seem to gloss over the fact that every Final Fantasy does something different, and they're always experimenting and trying new things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The license board was kind of like an evolution of the Sphere Grid, I thought, from 10, while taking away some of the straight stat increases and replacing them with abilities and, being able to do something. Like if you really wanted to, you can max out your swords even though you're not gonna get the best swords until the very end of the game anyways. But if you wanted to equip the best sword at level 12, you have the ability to do that.
Yep.
I did like that it kind of gave characters a more open approach, but still, Bosch was always going to be a more physical, at least in my eyes, Bosch was always the more physical person. Pinello and Ash were always mages.
The characters did have different, base stats that would change as you level up. The guys were better physical fighters and the girls were better mages. And
Fran was, always just the archer because
She started with the bow. You don't want to rock the boat.
Exactly. So, despite the fact that they gave you even more freedom to choose and how you leveled your characters, I probably leveled them very strictly based on what their base roll was, and that never changed with the remastered Zodiac grid where, yeah, Balthier was still the machinist, and Bosch was still the knight, and Penella was still the black mage.
Yeah, I did not like the forcing me into jobs, into choosing a job. I wanted my people to be unemployed and be like Final Fantasy X, and where they all became the same at the end and overpowered. That was what I wanted, and I was kind of hoping I'd have a choice between the two. But no, you have to pick the jobs, because like the machinist job was trash. It was garbage. It wasn't very good.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that they didn't let you choose the old version. They forced you into the international Zodiac version.
Mm-hmm.
But
because the black mage was still super powerful. Like I ended up having I made two people black mage, and going back when I played again to do all the 100% stuff, because you can get New Game Plus at level 90 and just rush through the game. I know I will be doing my job stuff very, very differently, because I think, what class did I make Fran? She was like, there's something called like a battle mage, I think, a red battle mage, and he like dabbles in like a little bit of each class, but he like wouldn't get he doesn't get like any of the high level spells.
Mm-hmm.
So that was end game useless. So Fran was useless to me by the end of the game. It was for the end game high boss fights. Yeah, and I wish you could have changed your jobs eventually, but you couldn't. You were stuck.
Yeah.
You had to choose a job early.
Yeah. Basically, the second you tried to use the license grid, you had to, and then partway through the game, again, when you wanted to choose a second one.
Yep.
That was a little unusual. I don't know why they would lock you into it. I don't know why they wouldn't give you the option of paying a fee and refunding all your license point to do it.
Did not like that. Not at all.
That was kind of a weird and bad choice. I definitely agree with that. How did you feel about the MMO-ish approach to the game, where instead of going into a separate battle screen like every Final Fantasy before it, you came across them on the world map and then just whip out your sword and started going at it?
I thought it was great. I love the Gambit system. Yeah, any game that plays itself is going to be one of my favorites. So I enjoyed it. Fast forward on, run through, clunk, 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 keep running ahead. Loved it.
Yeah, even before the fast forward option back on PS2, I always loved the Gambit system too. I never got too deep into it. I mean, I know some people micromanage the shit out of their characters to do the most minute things, but
no thanks. No thank you.
All I cared about was having bravery and protect on my characters and haste, and that's it. And
I loved never having to touch them unless like there was a boss and I was like, all right, I'll try to finish it off with quickenings, and that was it.
Yep. Quickenings I did not like.
Yeah. I didn't like them very much either, because it was so random whether you could like doing the switcheroo to see if you can get another attack off. I didn't love that.
Yeah, no. It was always weird to me that you had like 3 mini gauges and you used your quickening and then you shuffled other characters and maybe you got theirs or refreshed theirs, and sometimes you could refresh 2 and 3, but usually it's 1. But more often than not, you didn't refresh anyone, and you just had to keep pressing it over and over again, and seconds are ticking away of your quickening, and if you've only used like 3 of them, so you're going to get the shit burst at the end. That was my experience with most quickenings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not my favorite system. I definitely miss overdrives and limit breaks. Just the one like powerful attack.
Yeah, it just wasn't very good. That's the simplest way to put it. It wasn't a very good system. They tried something new, like you said, and we'll let that one go. Not going to bring that back.
Nope. We didn't really talk about it with 10, but I kind of liked the fact that they had, a small number of summons. they kept the total number, compact, because you only had one character that could use them in Yuna. So you had, some of the staples like Ifrit and Shiva, and Bahamut, of course. And then they brought back Maga Sisters, which was neat from way back.
Mm-hmm.
And added some new ones like Ixion, and Yojimbo wasn't a new summon, but they kind of introduced Yojimbo.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this how the summons worked in 10 too.
And
I really didn't use them in 12.
Nope.
I didn't really touch them. I think you can use them if you're doing some sort of challenge things. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you aren't supposed to use them when you're doing the fighting Yasmat and stuff like that. So they just sat on the bench. I ignored their little squares on the grid. I would kill them and get them because it was side quest stuff to do, but I never used them.
Nope.
And now that I've already started talking about it, let's talk about how so many side questy things to do in 12. Tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff. There's like two different kinds of like monster hunting quests.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just general go back into a dungeon that you went in before, and there's a summon hiding at the end. Who'd have thunk it? Gotta go kill him too.
Yep.
Tons of that all over the game. So once you're close to the end, your game doesn't have to end. It's gonna take you a long time before you get everything done. Long time.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the hunts. I thought it was a fun thing. I mean, it was a little disappointing that was really the equivalent of the minigame in this game. There is no minigame in 12.
No, not like a card game or anything like that.
Or
no.
Blitzball or Chocobo Racing or breeding or anything like that. So hunts were the closest thing to a minigame. And even then they were just a glorified side
Monster
quest.
Hunt.
Yeah. And you kind of went up the ranks in Clan Centurio to unlock better stuff down the line in their special shop. And you got some, backstory and neat little side stories, which was fine. It kind of made the game more grounded for me, which sounds weird with magic and summoning and stuff like that, but it still felt like a pretty grounded game. It must have been just because it was so politically based versus outright this character is gonna use this superpower to try to take over the world or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was more, the guy with the pretty hair, shit, I forget his name already. The main antagonist in 12. Help me out here.
Vayne.
Vayne Solidor, that's right. So while Vayne Solidor does get those ambitions and that bit of grandeur and stuff like that, it was all more politically based and a more grounded story, which I always appreciated. I really like the story in 12.
Oh, it's a very good story.
Yeah.
I think you said something about 10. I forget the word you used for how you described the story, but no, 12 is better at that. It is, it makes all the things that happen make sense. It's completely 100% easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Get over Nethicite and Magicite and Deaffected, whatever. It was pretty easy to follow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was the most down to earth story. I liked how like the Akiria and Vana, like they always thought of being the gods, but they're not gods. They're still just like regular creatures that just kind of pretended they were gods. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep. I always loved the story. I've always been a fan of like political dramas and stuff like that, so it definitely resonated with more. You
don't even watch Game of Thrones.
I want to, but I just don't have time. I want to. Maybe I will.
What's the last TV show you watched?
I watched the prequel episode to The Fractured Butthole the other day.
And when did you watch that? Yesterday, right?
Yes. actually.
Could have been watching Game of Thrones. There was your time.
Could have been.
There was your time right there.
Yep.
I solve problems, Brian. It was.
You do.
It's right there. It's right there in front of you.
Okay. I will get Final Fantasy
Yeah, watch
X.
those hour-long episodes in the 20-minute time you would watch a South Park. Just do that.
Even better, I will get Final Fantasy X on PS4 and just grind out my Sphere Grid for the platinum.
There you go.
While remote playing on PC while I watch Game of Thrones on TV.
Maybe I have a save that's like kind of close to the end, and I can like somehow send that over to you, and you can use that. So you don't have to.
Unfortunately, that locks out trophies. I've tried.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, a few games in the past were capable of doing that. That's how I got my infamous 1 platinum, because I had 349 out of 350 blast shards, but I couldn't find the last one. And after like 4 hours of just looking for one little item, I said fuck it, and I downloaded a save off the internet that had the last one right in front of me. But most games do not let you do that, unfortunately, for that very reason.
This is completely off topic, but I was
We're
pull up
already
my
there.
trophy list. Yeah, I was pull up my trophy list to see what games I actually played this week. In Metal Gear Solid 5, how many like main story missions are there? Because I'm up to 30 now.
I can't remember off the top of my head if it ends at like 47 or 50 or 51.
50. Okay, that's a lot. Because looking at the trophy list, like based upon the story missions that give you trophies, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 10 missions that give you a trophy for beating them. So I figured I'd be like 7/10 through, but that's a little bit less.
I think the last couple are shorter and faster. I don't know if you're familiar with kind of the sort of unfinished nature of the game.
Yeah.
It kind of shows a little bit towards the end, so you'll see. And then I'm like, you have a couple missions that go one into the next kind of deal.
Yeah.
And they're a little shorter as a result. But there is no there's an in-between, but I'm sure you've gotten that mission before where it's not like a beginning, middle, end of the middle story.
It'd
the
be
mission.
like to be continued, so it would let you do other things if you wanted to. Yeah, which is nice.
Right. I
I
think
don't
like 47 or 50. I can't remember off the top of my head, though.
I don't think I'm going to platinum it just because I
I
don't
didn't.
want to have to go through. I don't want to have to go through a guide through every mission to finish all the mission tasks and shit like that. Getting an S rank on all them all won't be too hard because it's not too hard to finish every mission fast, which is seemingly all that matters to get an S.
Basically,
But,
yep.
I don't want to go back and watch guides for 50 missions and get all the damn objectives. I like the last thing I did yesterday was, or yesterday or 2 days before, I don't know. It was that mission where you have to kill the 4 skulls to save Code Talker, and it was a pain in the ass. Probably took me at least 2 hours, probably 3 hours to figure out. Oh, I need to just dodge their melee attacks. And then it was then once I was like, oh, then we just actually dodge the attacks, and then I immediately beat it. But I was stuck on that for a good minute.
Yep.
Yeah, 12. Yeah, Final Fantasy 12 was good.
Yeah. I don't remember the last thing we were talking about in regards to that game.
I don't remember either. I think we were talking about side quests.
Side quest. Yeah. The hunt was fine. The fact that there wasn't Blitzball didn't detract from the game at all. I don't think.
No.
It was fine. It fit with the story fine. And just the world and stuff like that. It makes sense that there's no weird, crazy little minigame thing you could do, or they just chose to kind of ignore it and instead focused on just the straight killing monsters, going through the story, dealing with the political backlash of everything going on. I really, really enjoyed the Arcadian Empire as the good and bad guys. I mean, mostly bad if you're dealing with Vayne. Sometimes good if you're dealing with Lamont.
Mm-hmm.
Was that his name or his alias? I don't remember.
Larsa.
Larsa, that's it. Lamont was his fake name.
That was his alias, yes.
Gotcha. Larsa, I knew is something different. But they were flawed, but, not bad. Not inherently bad. Sephiroth was bad. Kuja was bad. When Seymour started going off the rails, he was bad.
Oh, Seymour sucked from the start. I had no interest in Seymour whatsoever.
Yep. But even Vayne being nice in the beginning, you sensed that dark side to him.
Oh, he was up to no good. Started making trouble in the neighborhood.
That was... Despite that, though, I never got the idea that Arcadia itself was bad, especially when you were dealing with the scenes of the current emperor talking with the Senate and saying Vayne is, going off the deep end. We have to stop him.
Yeah.
That whole thing was really interesting.
Yeah, and also still they weren't great because they were still taking over countries. They were empiring.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, but I do they kind of brought back the fan favorite 6 in some of the Magitech stuff like that, and to make up for it being a little more of a grounded game, instead of fighting Tonberries, the enemy, the little green guys with the robes, you fought a mini airship codenamed Tonberry, which was fun and a nice little...
Yeah, that all the airships had the regular summons names, and then your actual summon names were from Final Fantasy VII. All the demons were Final Fantasy VII, which is cool.
Yeah. Again, just kind of adding to the groundedness of the game, and which I always really, really liked. The end game I thought was a little bland, aside from more hunts and some mega bosses. That was basically it.
Yeah, I guess they didn't bring any new thing there because you were doing hunts and rare monster. I forget what they're called. It was just more of the same, and there was a few bosses that were just extra big. There's the Hellworm and Yasmat that you didn't even have to fight all in one go.
Yep. But
Hey, did you dabble in the 100 trial mode?
Not yet.
I dipped my toe in the pool and I just closed my eyes and I ended up at 50.
Oh, really?
And yeah, because I did that near the with whatever my end game save was. And yeah, then I closed my eyes and got to level 50. And because there was a trophy for getting to 50. And I'm sure if I opened my eyes, I could have gotten to 60 or 70. But it was set up so I guess you couldn't just have the same gambit set up the whole way through, which I'm sure was true because I remember there was 1 or 2 battles where you would start fighting a summon and it would be instantly he'd be draining all your magic, or you fight what's his name, Kuklane or Cooch, whatever, Kuklin, and he starts off you're poisoned throughout the whole battle, so that was a different thing, but I was over leveled so it didn't matter. But I can imagine there'd be more things like that the higher up you go.
So is it just a multi-floored dungeon where
you are in a room and then you run over to the start fight urn and then you start fighting, and I think you'll fight the 10 floors pretty much straight through, and then you'll get like a break to, I don't know, heal up and change your gambits in between.
Okay.
I mean, you can change your gambits at any time, but I think that was the only time where you had like an actual break.
And is it based on your normal save file levels and characters, or separate?
Yeah, it's based on those, yes. Well, and then it also makes like its own save file, and like I don't know, like you can't get up to level 10 and save, and then go do something else and come back and bring your new characters into that. So if you were level 60 when you beat the game and you played up to level 20, you couldn't go do more side quests in your main game and come back and start at level 20. You'd have to start over.
Okay. So it would behoove me to start when I'm overpowered to just blaze through it?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Because I'm sure once you're level 90 and you go through it, kill Yasmat. I mean, that's probably one of the last thing you want to do, because Yasmat isn't that hard in itself. There's
just
some
lengthy.
ways you would just cheese it out and just beat it regularly with gambits, but that's supposed to be the hardest, I guess, battles. So yeah, that'd be the last thing you do.
Okay, that's not too bad. I will definitely worry about that when that time comes.
Yeah.
Whenever I get back to it. Maybe in the next couple of weeks. I got 2 weeks. I got 10 days. I got 9 days before Fire Emblem Warriors comes out.
God, I screwed myself because I bought games in that GameStop like 4 for 20 sale, and I got, let me bring up my spreadsheet, because I got Uncharted 4 and Assassin's Creed Unity and The Division and Batman Arkham, whatever one was for the PS4. I got all 4 of those this week. Arkham Knight. I got all 4 of those on Monday or Tuesday.
Wow.
So I added 4 more 4 more big games onto my log. So I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. Yep. And I'm still playing Metal Gear Solid 5. I'm screwed.
Yep.
But I mean, they're Uncharted 4 for $5. I wouldn't say no to that.
No, it's a great deal.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yep, I chose not to partake in that sale or any other sales recently, just because I have Fire Emblem Warriors coming out on the 20th, and then a week later, both Assassin's Creed Origins and Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, one day something's gonna happen, and I'm just gonna be like flat broke, because then I'll just like barely have enough money to survive. And I'm like, I don't have money for video games anymore. Good thing I stocked up so much in 2017 and 16. This will get me through these trying times.
I assume that's going to be
I'm holding out for that.
I'm assuming that's going to be me in early 2018 when kid number 2 comes along.
Yeah, that will be you. And you'll say, man, I wish I'd bought 4 for 20 like Ryan told me.
Or I'll be covered in baby crap and just thankful that I'm still able to play a game because no one's pulling TVs down, and I have.
Now you'll be thinking the greedy way like me. But I could have had more games.
Probably.
We call that the glass half full, optimistic.
But anything else on Final Fantasy 12?
No. 12 is a dozen. That's it.
It is usually a dozen, unless it is a baker's dozen. That is 13.
Yeah, 12 was good, yeah. Good story. I love the Gambit. Some people didn't, but you didn't have to use the Gambits anyway, so get over yourself.
Although I probably disliked the characters more overall than 10. Balthier was fun. Bosch was okay. Ash was good. Vaughn I did not like.
Oh yeah, you just like, well, Van and Pinello were like phased out of the story once all the grown-ups got involved. Yeah,
Yep.
the grown-ups got involved, and then they just kind of like sat back, and like Vaughn would eventually like say something that was like slightly embarrassing, and that was it. And Pinello did nothing. She just sat there stone-faced in the back doing nothing.
Pinello was just your link to Larsa in those parts of the game.
Yeah, and then once Larsa goes away, she's nothing.
And then, Fran was the serious type who just explained everything. Balthier was great. Balthier was easily the best character, I think.
Hands down. Yeah, both. Yeah, he was good, and he was like entertaining on purpose. It's good.
Yep. But overall, I thought the enemies and the other characters were more interesting than the party itself.
Probably.
Vane and
Possibly.
Larsa and Arcadians and the Marquis. And even some of the side characters that you deal with during Hans Mont Blanc.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Like I did like, I liked Vana and the rest of the Ikuria.
Mm-hmm.
When you're killing Vane and like he's merging, Vana's merging with Vane, and he's like, no, it's fine. We'll go die together. And then you kill them.
Right.
Because he's like, no, our plan worked. I know we're going to die, but the reins of history will be back in the hands of man.
Right. And, man.
The end.
Stay tuned for part 3 when we talk about PlayStation 3's Final Fantasy game. All 3 Final Fantasy 13s.
We should have let Hugo know we were still going. He probably could have made it.
That's all right. But I think that's it for us. I think that's all we have to say about 10 and 12 for now. I'm sure we can continue going forever.
Yeah, that's all we have to say for now. It's
right.
Very different.
And I'm sure I will have more to say about 12 once I play it a little more again. And when
You need to play 10 again so the story can make sense for you, too. You're missing out.
the story will never make sense for me.
You keep talking about, like, religion, wars, and stuff. It's off the wall, man.
That's how I look at life. If it's not off the wall, it's boring. But
You say that with, like... you talk in, like, just this calm, super calm demeanor, and you're like, I like things that are off the wall, and like when I come in the room, it's like lightning strikes. with the calmest voice I've ever heard.
I try to yell as little as possible.
Yeah,
If I was yelling, you wouldn't be able to hear your cat.
yeah. I know. I guess it must be food time. It probably is. I did feed her at 7:30, so it is food time.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm gonna go feed her, and I suppose you can wrap us up.
I will wrap us up indeed. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for indulging us in our lengthy, tangent-filled discussions about Final Fantasies. Stay tuned for next time when we continue to do it and other RPGs. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye.